dealing with COVID matters, there's simply no avoiding it. The tourism, hospitality and events industries need to be revived, but in order to do so safely, the mass gathering of crowds and the movement of travelers will have to be managed. While South Africa's entertainment industry is calling on government to allow the sector to fully open up using a centralized digital platform for vaccinated people. Leading this initiative is the CEO of Big Concerts, Justin van Wyk. Justin, thanks for your time. People speak about reviving the event industry. Is there even an events industry left? It seems to have been decimated.
No, it's a good point. There's no recovery for us. It's a complete rebuild from scratch. As you may see in the background, we've had the largest arena in South Africa closed down recently. We've had absolutely no income since March last year. A large number of companies have gone into business rescue or have foreclosed outright. So it's a really tough time for entertainment.
We are into 500 plus days of this lockdown. Has anyone in the industry been able to do anything profitable, big or small?
Perhaps on a very small scale. I think it was just before the second lockdown that we were doing about 500 outdoors. I know a few of our colleagues in the festival business were able to do a few shows. But other than that, for theatres, for any sorts of other entertainment events, conferences, exhibitions, no one's been able to operate. I mean, initially we had some live streaming, people try to go virtual, but it's the face-to-face interaction, which is the live business, and certainly the entertainment business and the events business that's really been hurt the hardest.
So a paperless system, a digital COVID-19 vaccination passport of sorts is among the measures being implemented in Europe. Are we any closer to getting that, and how would that help our tourism and entertainment industries?
Yeah, look, it's happening everywhere in the world. It's a controversial issue, but it's something that's going to happen for society and education and congregate settings and high-risk industries to open up. There simply is no way for us to control the risk of transmission if we're not able to determine someone's vaccination or health status. It's as I said, very, very controversial. There's lots of allegations of discrimination, but we really have to come to a point where that everyone in an environment with lots of people, whether they have the COVID virus or not, whether they've been vaccinated, whether they're a risk to others, and that's really what it's all about. So it's in the pipeline. I mean, as I said, it's an issue that government has been seized with, and every government around the world is seized with, is how do you balance your right to bodily integrity? How do you balance your right to religious freedoms with the right to a safe environment at the workplace or the university or sitting at a restaurant? Some key issues there.
The events sector also wants government to implement a policy around third-party vaccination platforms to help streamline the information. What does this involve, and where are we in that process?
Yeah, so we're seeing it everywhere now. You've got the travel industry with their IATA Travel Pass, which is a system that stores your testing or vaccination status, and it's a reliable platform through which people can then scan with a QR code scanner or a mobile device and determine what your status is. And we've seen sort of similar programs pop up. France has just done it now. You can't go to a cafe or a restaurant or any sort of setting with lots of people without the operator of that establishment checking your status. We've seen it happen in the UK. Of course, we were all seeing full capacity stadium for the Euro finals and their festivals and things like that. That's because they got the NHS pass. And that NHS pass is now being made compulsory for any large events or nightclubs or environments like that where the risk of transmission is high. So that's really what we're looking for here in South Africa is a third-party platform that can integrate with the government systems and provide a safe and reliable and independent way for us to check someone's status. It's always going to be up to the user to decide what information they want to share with a third party, but we think such a digital system, as opposed to people walking around with a card which is handwritten by someone with no security features, is definitely not going to help us to reopen society. It's got to go digital. It's got to be on QR codes. We have to be able to independently verify.
So, Justin, you're very pro the digital passport, obviously, because you feel it will help the industry. But what about some of the controversy you mentioned earlier, endangering data, or maybe the chances that it might exacerbate inequality?
Yeah, and those are very good arguments. There's a big argument between digital passports and what we're really advocating for is digital health certificates. So digital health certificate is a digitized version of your vaccine card or a testing certificate, and you as the user, you decide who you want to share that data with. It's up to the private operator or the industry to decide whether or not they make such a health and safety protocol compulsory as part of their way to manage risks within the environment. It's the same in a workplace environment. It's slightly different from a passport, which is typically made compulsory and it's managed by government. And government also determines not just the privileges that you get, but how you also get that. And it raises a lot of questions around the application process and whether that locks people out. But the important thing is, there's no way for us to open up high-risk industries, travel, tourism, hospitality, sport and recreation, entertainment, manufacturing, healthcare, mining, without some sort of tool in place to manage and mitigate the risk of transmission. We ultimately have to save lives and livelihoods. You can't forever lock down industries. There are 2 million people working in tourism and the cultural and creative sectors, and they have been badly affected, and millions of people have lost their jobs and businesses. So you ultimately have to weigh it up in the greater public good.
Justin, we hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining us. That's the CEO of Big Consus, Justin van Wyk, advocating for some sort of digital version of our vaccination cards. If you've been for a vaccination, you'd have received one of those cards handwritten. And what he's saying is that, it'll be easier to have a digital footprint that you can track and is verifiable. And then you as the user would decide who you'd like to give that information to access services.
I just find it super interesting because, for the past year and a half, right, we've all been frustrated with the lockdown restrictions, not being able to go anywhere. And now vaccines are available. They essentially in the future are going to make it easier for us to get out and about. Finally, after all this time, and we still have so much hesitancy. Definitely something we need to be talking more about.
I think people are scared, and there's so much misinformation out there that as much as we've put out information, and we're putting out information on our channel here every day, the government is trying to do a lot to put out information. There's still so much misinformation doing the rounds, and people maybe are just a little bit scared. And when they see that Tafuma got his vaccine, he's not growing a third leg. Maybe then they'll go and get their vaccine.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We just have to keep encouraging people to do that so we can get back to normal.